everyone. Hello. The stream is starting soon. The stream has started. This is the stream. Okay. We're going to talk seller financing. And, when I first got started in this business, you'd always ask for seller financing. And the rule that I teach my students is you don't ask, you don't get. So then the market changed, and you weren't getting seller financing. There was just no way. They weren't going to offer it to you. Market was strong. Sellers were in the driver's seat. There was no reason for them to even offer you, or what we say, take back any paper. And now we're back in this situation, and we've come full cycle. And it's very, very interesting to me to see sellers try to get creative on their own when it comes to seller financing. So, I came up with my whole rules of, when you ask for seller financing, here are the steps that you need to do in order to make it work for you. Let me know in the sidebar in the comments if you want me to kind of run through that. But the focus of today is more from the seller's perspective. Because I was teaching last night to my clients, and I found a deal on Crexy that was seller financing. Now, if this type of stuff appeals to you, then you can easily find these types of deals by going on LoopNet. I'm going to tell you how to do it on LoopNet. I've never tried to do it on Crexy before, but you can try the same techniques on Crexy. I'm sure they have the same features. So what you want to do on LoopNet is go into multifamily, and then under keyword, you want seller financing. And listen, this is just a tip. You can use it for anything: bank owned, repossessed, foreclosed, any type of words like that, and you hit enter. You don't put in any region. You just put in seller financing, multifamily, and hit enter. And then you're going to see all the opportunities across the whole country. Now, obviously, there are different types, but there are different types of seller financing. But I'm going to talk about two types right now. The first type is all seller financing, in my estimation, is a red flag. But the worst kind is where you got the seller doing the financing because the property is so distressed, no bank would ever do the financing. So the seller has to be the bank. Folks, you never want to own someone else's problem. And when you see that type of an arrangement, you're buying someone else's problem. Don't do it. So that's the first question. If the property is so bad that the bank won't do it, don't you make the mistake. All right. So that's the one type of red flag seller financing. Now, the next type is the one that I discussed last night on the call. And here it is. And we're seeing a lot of this now because of what's going on with the interest rates. And here's what it is. As soon as I take my swig of moonshine. New Hampshire moonshine. Gotta love it. Okay. So, as a matter of fact, let me share my screen here. I'll bring up the property that I'm talking about, and then I'll show you exactly. All right. Let me jump back on over here. So this is it. Let me see if I can change the look here. Yeah, check that out. There I am. All right. So here it is. Name of the property is Magnolia Apartments. It's in Huntsville, Alabama. It's a nice looking property. So why would we need seller financing? And actually, the rents and the rent collections are very strong. And wait until you see the expenses. So this is definitely something that definitely something that should be able to be bank financed. But why is it not? All right, let me show you. I'm going to scroll down to what what matters most. All right, so there it is. You can see here that it's a 48 unit, nice small, great property to get started with. 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 900 square feet, good size units. $7 million, 145,000, 5.68% cap rate. Okay. When I got to this page, bells started going off. I began to understand why the seller is offering seller financing. It's because 2 or 3 years ago, he probably could have got $7 million for this property. So he's got that number in his mind that I'm going to buy this property for $7 million. Fast forward 2 to 3 years, interest rates are through the roof. Numbers don't comp out anymore. And there's no possible way he can get $7 million. There's no possible way he can get 5.68 cap rate on this property in Huntsville, Alabama in today's market. No way. But you can't talk to a seller who's got a number in his head. I'll tell you, there was a time when I was looking at a property. It was in it must have been the Cincinnati, because I don't remember exactly where. It must have been the Cincinnati area, because I remember the brokers, and there were 2 good guys out in the Cincinnati marketplace, and the property was being sold for $8 million. $8 million. I did my numbers. I comped it out, and I came up with $4 million. And I said to the broker, I said, $8 million? How are you coming up with $8 million? This is the beauty of multifamily. Everything's a formula. You just plug in the numbers, you work the formula, and you know what it's worth. I said, I got $4 million. How are you coming up with $8 million? He goes, that's what they want. I said, but it doesn't make any sense. He goes, yeah, I know. I said, so what's the story? And he said, there are 4 children. And I stopped and I thought to myself, oh, okay. I know what you're saying. The father died, left this $4 million property to the kids, probably told the kids, you'll all get $1 million a piece from that property, but didn't tell them there's a $4 million mortgage on the property. So they're not getting anything. Property's worth $4 million, but they're not getting it. So they thought, okay, well, if we're each going to walk away with $1 million, we'll add that $1 million on top of the loan amount. And there's the $1 million a piece that our father told us we were going to get. Doesn't work that way. Same here. It doesn't work this way, where he picks a number, backs into a cap rate of 5.68, especially when the market won't even cover that, and gets his $7 million number that he had in his head. So what you need to understand is that in today's market, when you're dealing with a seller that does not have does not have the right valuation for the property, there's no way you're ever going to get there for him, because you've got the bank as the boogeyman. And if the seller does the financing, there's no more boogeyman. So the seller's doing the financing. You can't say, well, the property doesn't comp out. Hey, sure, it's $7 million property. We'll do the paperwork and you'll own it for $7 million. Nah, you've got to buy it. You got to make the offer that works for you, regardless of what the financing arrangement is. But I can guarantee you, though, if you come in there and this guy finally starts dropping his price, he's not going to do seller financing anymore. I guarantee it. He'll say, go to a bank. You don't need me anymore. Go to a bank. So that's what happens in these situations, is that you no longer have the bank as the boogeyman. That's what I teach my students, is if your numbers don't come close to the sales price, but you've done everything right, it's not your problem. Blame it on the bank. And nowadays, we don't care what the cap rate is. 5.68. Do you honestly think 5.68 is the right number? It isn't. There's no appraiser that will give you a valuation on this property of a 5.68 cap rate. In Huntsville, Alabama, with interest rates going through the roof, no, not going to happen. So then what we look at is the debt coverage ratio. Okay, now watch this. This is where it's going to get really interesting, because what we have to now look at, because remember what we said is we said that the oh nope, hold on. I hope I didn't screw that up. Let me see if that works. There we go. There we go. Good. What we have to look at is what are the terms that the seller is going to use in order to entice you to do this deal. And here it is. It's a 60% LTV. Well, what that means is that you got to put 40% down. You got to come up with what is it? 7 million. What's the difference? 2.8 million. 2.8 million to buy 48 units. Folks, you can go a lot of other places and use that amount of money out of your pocket and buy more apartment than this guy's selling. But why has he picked the number 40%? Why? I'm going to ask, I have not given away the answer yet. I'm going to ask people here in the audience. I'm going to read Francis's quote. And what I'm going to ask you to do is type into the comment box, why did this guy choose 40% down? In terms of seller financing, what would be the green light to go after the deal? Also, would the seller be in first position on the loan? Are the terms negotiable? Okay, first off, 3 questions here. Thank you, Francis, for being economically concise with your questioning. All right, I'm going to answer the last one first. Are the terms negotiable and more flexible than traditional? Terms are always negotiable. Everything is negotiable. You negotiate for the deal that works for you. And more flexible, absolutely, but you better make sure it works for you. Also, would the seller be in first position on the loan? Great question. I don't know. But you better know before you do it, because think about it. $2.7 million. This seller is asking me to come to the table for. I better be in first position. If I'm raising that money with other people, I better let them know that, hey, the 2.7 that you all invested with me, well, guess what? We weren't in first position. The other deal got foreclosed on and we got wiped out. Oh, you better know the answer to that question before you go into it. And my advice is only be in first position. Don't do anything otherwise. And what would the green light be to go after the deal? That the price makes sense. I don't care if it's seller financing. I don't care if you get money, cash back at closing. If you're overpaying for the property, you might as well just drop the keys on the bank's desk because you're working for somebody else. The green light is if you can get this at the right price. Okay, now we'll talk financing after that. But if that's not the case, forget about it. Forget about it. All right, where are you folks? Where's my answer? Where's the 16 the 16 people on the call? Where is the answer to the reason why the seller needs 40% down? 2 reasons. So actually, there was a 3rd reason last night. Somebody came up with a very good answer, but I can't remember. If anybody was on last night's call, go ahead and type it in. All right, so here's the deal. First off is because that means that at the closing table, he puts $2.7 million in his pants, and he's very happy for having $2.7 million in his pocket. I said, that the entire debt? No, real estate, Alberta, Canada. That's not the entire debt. Well, 60% is the debt. Yeah, that'll be the entire debt. 2.7 is your equity. That's what you're putting down as a down payment. That goes right to the seller at the closing table. Now he's got a note you got a note. You made the note. You're the note maker. He's the note holder. Now he holds a note that gets paid on the terms that you guys have negotiated for the next X number of years or period payments. So the one thing is the guy walks away with a big, huge chunk of change. The second reason is because the that's the only way the deal works. You have to put 40% down for the debt coverage ratio to work. I ran this deal two different ways. I ran it with a 40% down and the debt coverage ratio was 1.45. Of course that's going to work. You're putting that's the existing debt. No, okay, I see where you're going. Real estate, Alberta, Canada. No, we don't know what the existing debt is. I'm going under the assumption that we will be the existing debt when this deal closes. I'm not what do they call it? Sandwiching. So, we're not taking it subject to the existing mortgage. You can't do that with commercial, guys. I know if a lot of you doing single family, doesn't work that way in commercial. They'll foreclose on you if they find out you did a deal subject to. All right, so that's the only way it works. When I ran this deal at 80% LTV, where I only put 20% down, which that should be my right number, it was a 1.09 debt coverage ratio, which means that $7 million is not the right price. The $7 million is you're overpaying for it. And I knew that right away when I saw the 5.68 cap rate. I knew right away that was not the right cap rate for this property. And it's proven further because if I use conventional financing, the deal doesn't work. If I use his seller financing, lo and behold, the deal works. So it's kind of what Francis was saying. Can you get creative? Well, sure you can, because this guy did. Let's see what Alberto, paying out debt and figures out to 20% down. Yeah, exactly. Paying out debt and figures out to 20% down. Go and figure it out at 20% down. That's what a conventional deal should look like. I mean, that's if it's a government-sponsored entity. Nowadays, banks are a lot more conservative. You're looking at 70 to 75% LTV. I get it, but try the numbers. Stress the numbers at that number. Did you not pull title to find the exist? Why would I do that, real estate? I'm not buying this property. I'm not buying a seller finance overpriced deal in Huntington. Where did we say it was? Huntington, Alabama. Why? No, I'm not going to pull title. This is an example. I got no skin in this game with this property. I'm not going to buy a 48 unit in down. What's your OS on the? What's your OS on the ideal debt? Okay, all right. Okay, Alberto? I know this game. I know everything. I don't know what you mean by OS. For us, operating system, or because that's what my company is called, Multifamily OS. But what do you mean by OS? Alberto, I just want to make sure that we're talking the same page. All right. And I'm going to tell you how debt coverage ratio works. And I will, yes, you're right. All right. So I'm going to answer Humberto's answer. Folks, if anybody tells you that the debt coverage ratio should be one number, they're not an investor. The debt coverage ratio is a dynamic number that changes based upon the quality of the asset, aka the quality of the tenant. You will hear everyone tell you that the debt coverage ratio needs to be 1.2. Well, let me tell you something. The debt coverage ratio should be 1.2 if you're the bank, because you have no risk in this deal. You have a little bit of risk. Here's the risk that you have. If the guy can't make the numbers, you just take the property back. This guy put down 40%, $2.7 million. This lender, the seller, is into this deal for very short money. He's got very little risk. So that's why a 1.2 debt coverage ratio is what the banks want to see. It's not what you should want to see when you're pricing out your property. A debt coverage ratio changes if it's a Class A, B, or C property. Class A, I tell my students 1.3 debt coverage ratio. The debt coverage ratio is your sleep number. The higher the number, the better you're going to be able to sleep. Class A property, you've got great tenants who plan their lives out accordingly, who will wait months before they move. They protect their credit rating. So those people will pay you. So you can go with a lower debt coverage ratio. A Class B asset, you're looking more of a 1.4. And a Class C asset, you want to price that property and the financing such that it's a 1.6 debt coverage ratio. If you're looking to buy a C-class property with a 1.2 debt coverage ratio, you have to price that thing and you have to do everything perfectly for it to work. And nothing works perfectly on a C-class property. So your debt coverage ratio as an investor should change based upon the quality of the asset. If you're a bank, 1.2. For instance, but that's just, let me give you an example. I'm on the board of the Nashville YMCA, and I was looking at their debt, and their debt is 1.1 debt coverage ratio. And you want to know why? The reason why is because the nonprofits don't have to pay an investor, so their money can be they can be a little bit more aggressive on the debt coverage ratio. So in theory, Francis says, if we give the seller their price and we can control the terms of the deal, we would negotiate 0% down and a monthly amount that is supported by the property's debt coverage ratio. Would this work? I'm never one for overpaying for a property, even if you can get the financing to work. Because, and I'm going to talk about it in just a moment, because the debt eventually comes due. And if the market has turned while you own this property, you're now upside down. And you never want to be upside down. So you must start with the basic understanding. You buy low, you sell high. But if you buy high, you've just violated the rules. So don't look at seller financing as some great panacea to get a deal closed. You don't want to own someone else's problems. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the rest. Let's kind of build on what Francis has been talking about here and talking about the terms here. And I think the terms are very important as well. And this guy's terms are dog crap, okay? I don't like them. First off, it's a 5-year term. That's a short term. Okay, you can live with it, but geez, I'd like to see a little bit longer. That's number one. Number two is it's a 5-year term. This guy is the bank, and he still wants me to amortize the debt over a 30-year period. It's like, come on, man. I mean, you're telling me that you don't even have faith in this property. Give me an interest only for the next 5 years. I'm just going to rent this money from you. Why do I have to pay down this debt over the next 5 years? Let me use that money to plow back into the property. So I don't like that the guy's doing seller financing and he's amortizing the note. That just bugs me. And let me see, loan maturity, amortization, interest rate, loan term, 60% LTV. Yeah. So those are some of the things that I am having an issue with on his terms. Let me see if I can find, and then we can get down here. See if you can see this. We did that. Okay, the cap rates, GRM cash on cash, still crappy. He's got the debt coverage ratio 1.85. I figured out at 1.645, and then when I changed it 20% down, it was 1.09. But look at this guy. Look at what his expenses are. He's got nothing under there for property management fee. He's paying somebody $6,000. He's got it. I love these guys who do their pro formas such that the real estate taxes, the insurance, the electric, the water and sewer, all the big ones, all the big ticket items, They never go up in price between uh, this year and next year. So right away, this is not working. And ultimately, what we came up with was this expense ratio that he was using to calculate out the cap rate was it was let me stop the share here. It was a 29% expense ratio, 1974 build. It's just not going to work that way. So, all right. So that is why I want you always to be leery, buyer beware of any type of seller financing deal. They're not what they're cut out to be. And just like anything else, if you see a seller that's doing something like that, just come to the realization that, hey, this guy's a distressed seller. This guy's a distressed seller, and I'm an investor. And so my job as a salesperson, because this is a sales and marketing business, my job as a salesperson is to uncover the seller's problem and then find a cure for it that everybody can live with. That's your job. So, all right, folks, that's my lesson for today. I hope this makes you a smarter investor. Always, make the offer that works for you. Do not overpay for property. We never overpay for property because we are investors. Investors do not pay retail. That's what the other guy does. All right. Okay, wait. One final question from Carpe Diem. What should the expense ratio be? Oh gosh, Carpe, this is what I teach. Okay, here we go. You ready? Once again, the there are vendors who look for victims. Yes, there are, especially in this business. Don't be the victim. Okay, so the expense ratio. Once again, it all goes to the quality of the asset. So, I look at the expense ratio for Class A between 30 and 40. That's about where you want to see it, especially in today's market. When you see what's going on with the real estate taxes, with insurance costs, with property management fees. I mean, it's when you just take out those big chunks that always have to be paid, you don't have much left over. So you're looking at on a Class A property about a 30 to 40% expense ratio. And the reason why it's low for two major reasons. Number one, the property's probably in great shape, brand new. You're looking at very low repairs and maintenance. And then number two, and therefore low repairs and maintenance means low payroll. And then number two is repairs and maintenance. Utilities. Usually a newer construction property is structured and built in such a way that the tenants always pay the utilities. And so that is the other reason why you're seeing a lower expense ratio. Now, Class B, which tend to be things, when I first got in this business, those are things built after 1980. And what was happening at that time, things built before 1980, they typically had chiller boilers, the utilities were paid for by the landlord. And then we had the energy crisis. And all of a sudden, those properties became dinosaurs, and all the new construction had those in-closet furnaces, hot water heaters. They're fantastic. So Class B expense ratio, we tend to look for about 145 to 150, 45 to 55% expense ratio. And then C class properties, you're looking at things over 60%. Ooh, very hard to make money. That's why I told you your debt coverage ratio has to be a lot higher. And typically C class properties, the landlord, it's an all bills paid property, meaning the landlord pays it versus a tenant paid property, which means the tenants pay it. You don't care what the utilities are. Even if you do some type of a utility bill back like RUBS, even if you do that, you're never going to make money billing it back. Don't do that, because then you're violating the laws, because that means that you are selling the utilities for a profit and you are essentially a utility company, and therefore the government and utility companies don't like competition as well as criminals, and so therefore they'll come after you. So don't do that. So you look at these properties as being that you can bill back for utilities, different ways to do it. And as a matter of fact, man, if Molly is on the phone, on the line, I actually had a guy on my podcast who does utility he measures utility usage, and he can bill it back to your tenants. He puts a little device that can measure the amount of water, that can measure the amount of gas that goes through the pipes. It's the coolest thing. And as a result of that, you can bill back, and he handles all of that. Geez, somebody could go, just go on my podcast and you'll see it. Wait a minute. Dang. I think Molly's already got it. If you go to that link, she will, that's it. You can watch my podcast with that particular student. Submeter Solutions. Yes. Was his name Paul? Kelly Kuntz. That's it. Molly. She's amazing. All right. Kelly Kuntz, Submeter Solutions. There's the YouTube video. If you have property that your tenants are your tenants are in partnership with the utility companies, and you don't want that to happen anymore, go online and listen to my presentation with Kelly Kuntz. All right, folks, I gotta run. Great talking with you all, and we will chat later. Have a great day.